Hi, this is Chris with Cozy Fabrications, and I wanted to take a few minutes and do a quick firmware update on my Ender 5 Plus. This is a follow-up to the preview video that I did, and in this video what I'm going to do, I'm going to just do a simple firmware upgrade to the Ender 5 Plus that will hopefully fix my bed leveling issues that I showed in the original video. Will it work? I have no idea. I haven't done this yet, so let's find out right here on Cozy Fabrications. Let's go. So as I mentioned, this is a quick video. As you can see, I don't have my usual camera set up here. What I've got is my laptop. What I'm recording on is my laptop camera, and I've got another webcam that I'm going to be showing you the Ender 5 Plus on. But I'm going to walk you through the directions that I found on the Creality website on how we're going to upgrade this printer. I found this upgrade is listed on the Ender 5 Facebook group from Creality. You can download this hex file from there. I've downloaded it to my desktop so that I can get to it. Let's go through the process and I'll show you exactly how it's done. So here I am on the webcam. You can see my Ender 5 here. What I've got, I have hooked up the cable that it came with. This is the USB cable. I'm going to plug this into my USB hub. And my printer should power on. And then when we go to our screen capture, hopefully we will see that this pops up as a device under my Windows installation. Now this is an older copy of Windows 7 that I've got here on this laptop. Hopefully we will see right here, yep, we got USB serial COM3 that has popped up. It's installed all the drivers. Hopefully this driver that comes with Windows will work just fine. Alright, so next thing what we're going to do, let's go ahead and we're going to, one thing I want to do first, actually I've installed Putty on here, which will allow me to actually find out what version of firmware is on here first so that I can make sure that the upgrade actually works. So this, right now, I've already set up a profile. I'm going to load that. And you can see this is a serial profile. I'm talking to COM3, which is right here, which I saw in the device manager. I'm setting the speed to 11.5.200, which is the default. And then I can say open. It's going to pop this up. Notice I actually get an output here straight away from the printer. I am getting Marlin version 170.0 BL. Here is the date. So what I'm going to do is open up a notepad instance because I want to be able to verify this later. So I'm just going to cut and paste all of this. I don't actually need it all. Oh, that apparently cut and pasted it. So there it goes. I can verify that this has been updated. From what I can tell, they haven't updated the Marlin version number, but I hopefully will get a new last updated here. Before I go through the upgrade process, make sure you shut down Putty if you've started it or any other app that's going to grab a hold of that COM port. So next up, I'm going to open, you will need the Creality slicer for this. This is available on the micro SD card that comes with the printer. Now under my particular installation of Windows, in order to get this to work right, I actually have to right click on it and run as administrator. It will not start if it's not run as administrator. Now what I've done here is I've already actually loaded up a profile. What I had to do in order to get this, it's an Ender 5 profile. There was not an Ender 5 Plus, at least on my early micro SD card. All I did was load the Ender 5 profile and then went into the machine settings, and then that machine settings here, I can adjust my bed size and it pretty much works the same. If you're not using Creality Slicer, none of this matters because all we're going to be using it for is the firmware update. Okay, so now we're ready to flash to firmware. First thing we need to do, let's go to File, we're going to go to Machine Settings. That's going to pop up this dialog. We're going to now need to select the port, which is COM3, the baud rate, which we know is 11.5.200. I'm going to say OK. Okay, now we can go over to Install Custom Firmware. Select that 0902 V170BL. Hopefully this 0902 is what shows up in our serial terminal after we're done. We're going to say OK. So it gives us a warning that this is only for ATmega 2560s, which this is. And there we go. It is uploading the firmware. Okay, so it says it's all done. I'm going to say OK. Now let's go back. We're going to shut this down. And let's bring up our putty session again and see if we see a difference in the firmware. There you go. Well, that is automatically a new bunch of settings that it's printing out every time. And so look right here, we have our last updated is 2019-902. So we can see that this actually did upgrade the firmware like we were hoping for. So now we're going to move back out to the wide shot so that I can actually test the bed leveling, and we'll see if this seems to fix the problem. Okay, so now that we've actually done the firmware upgrade, we can unplug it from the computer. We won't need this cable for the moment, so let me go and unplug it. Okay, so now we can turn on the printer as usual and cut that on. It's going to load up the UI like it normally does. We haven't changed anything on the display. There's been no firmware upgrade settings there. So let's go to settings. Actually, I want to see if they fix this other thing. Let's get this printer up to temp. I'm going to set some manual settings here. I'm going to set the printhead to 200. I'm going to set the bed to 60, and we're going to start with that. Let's let that heat up. Alright, so we're about up to temp now, so I'm going to go ahead back into the menu. I know you can't see both of these at the same time, but I wanted to show you the bed do its thing. So we're going to go back in here and we're going to hit the leveling button under the settings. And that should get us going. Bed's going to come up. Okay, there we are. Should be back to basically where I had it before. It seems to have saved my settings because it is right now sitting on the bed just like it should be. There's two settings. There's the aux leveling, which is actually where it lets me manually adjust it. It just goes to the corner for me. Then there's the measured bed leveling, which is where it does the job. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do measuring. And this is where it's going to go to each of the corners. And we'll see if it is both measuring each of the locations and whether they're basically near the same parts of the bed, like from each side. Alright, it's created a mesh. Now we want to see, is that mesh functional for 3D printing? So what I'm going to do, of course, I got some leaking filament here I'm going to get off. And next thing I'm going to do, under the leveling mode, there is a auto leveling on-off switch. I'm going to turn that on so that next time when it's heated up, it will auto level for us. So let's go ahead, switch back to my screen. So I brought back up the Creality slicer here. I didn't have another slicer on this particular computer, so I thought, let's use what I have. I have this 200 millimeter test pattern that I created a long time ago for my ANET printer. And I'm going to scale that for this bed, and we can use it as a bed level test on this printer. There may be better ones, but again, this is kind of a quick and dirty test to see if it will work. So I'm going to come in here. I have not used this before, so let's go ahead and scale this up. We're not going to need to go the full size. So let's say 340. Will that fit? 340 by 340. Looks like it's still happy. That gives it a little bit of room. We'll be able to go edge to edge on here, as well as see if the center is level. If, when we print this, all the filament lays down uniformly, we know that we have a good auto bed leveling test. So at this point, we should be able to, we don't want to print with USB, so how do we output this to something else? Save G code. All right, there we go. So we're going to save this G code. Let's put it out to our card here and say save. I don't know what the default settings is on this slicer. Excuse me. I don't know what the default settings are on this slicer. And so I'm not exactly sure why it thinks this will take 3 hours and 45 minutes. But let's see. I'm not even sure. Oh, because there's a raft. Ooh, we don't want that. Let's go to none. I'm just going to go without it. There we go. 1 hour and 9 minutes. That's a lot better. Yeah, we can't print with USB, of course. So we're going to save the G code again, and we'll overwrite that other file. Yes, we want to replace it. Open the folder. Alright, and once the folder is open, then we can eject this and get it put into our printer for printing. There we go. Okay, going to pull this out, take it, insert my SD card into the printer. Alright, so we're going to say print. That 200mm test pattern came right up in my menu. I want to make sure my bed is clear and that there's no filament leaking. Let me see, did it stay heated? Yes. So this is great. So one thing, I'm almost positive this wasn't working, but maybe I'm wrong. I've been testing multiple printers. But this is great. The bed and the hot end through all of the bed leveling, through the auto leveling, everything has stayed at a constant temp without cooling. That's excellent. So now we're going to do print. We're going to do the 200mm test pattern. We select print, and it's already up to temp. So this should begin fairly quickly. And since I turned on the auto bed leveling on in the menu, we should see it auto bed level from the very beginning as soon as it begins. There we go. There it's finding our Z offset. This is just the very beginning of the test pattern, or excuse me, of the leveling pattern. And now it's going to do that mesh leveling as it did before. So take a little bit of time. But, you know, if you're doing longer prints, this is going to be worth it. Or if you just care about, you know, your bed level all the time, then let it do its job. There are some ways around this using the firmware. I picked that up in a later video. So I wasn't watching carefully enough the first time, so I'll mention this now. It is definitely not going over far enough to the right for the bed leveling. Given the offset between the BLTouch and our printhead, it should be coming, that BLTouch should be coming a lot closer to this edge to match where it is on that edge. Otherwise, we don't have an accurate representation of the bed. So let me see how this plays out when we actually go to print. It could be good enough, but I'm not 100% sure. I think these clips are definitely going to be in the way, which is a problem. So of course what we've got here on the beginning is simply it not being primed with filament. So that's all we're seeing there. Let's see, we're going to hit all of these clips. Okay, we're not hitting the clips on that side, so luckily they'll be there to hold everything on still. So far, I think it's still able to capture an accurate mesh of this bed. It's hitting that clip still. Watch where your clips are, or you're going to run into them anyway if you try to print all the way out to the edges of the bed. Get all this out of the way so it doesn't hit it again. Well, what I can say, that was just the brim, or excuse me, that was just the skirt. So we should be good now without hitting our clips, because it should be in further now. And even though I think that it really doesn't come over far enough to this edge, it looks like it is good enough. It is getting at least the correct topology of the bed. It's not going to be a perfect representation because, again, it's closer to this edge than it is this edge. But looking at this print so far, it is definitely good enough. In fact, it's very good. It would be nice if that offset was corrected, but results don't lie. So hopefully other people see as good a results as I'm getting. I'll tell you, the slicer was definitely on slow. I'm guessing it maybe is on 50 millimeters per second. And then what we're seeing here on first layer is half 50 millimeters per second. So we're probably getting 25 millimeters per second at this point. So at this point, it has completed enough for me to say that it is a very good mesh bed level. It's getting the topology accurate. It knows that, you know, one side might be higher than the other side. It knows basically where any of the hills and valleys are. It may be off just a little bit, but it's not showing on the print. This entire print is extremely level at this point. I can look straight at the glass and see that it's almost uniform across the entire bed. In fact, I don't see any spots where the extrusion is not uniform. So I'm going to let this print finish real quick. I'll note whether there's any noticeable problems with it, and then I will give you any final conclusions I have. By the way, if you see my Bowden tube here dragging on the bed, that is something I know I need to fix. It just needs to be untwisted, and it should stay up off the bed. So before I get comments on it, that's what's going on. Alright, so now that this print is done, let's take a look at it and see if coming off the bed, if it looks as good as it did going down. And taking a look at the underside of this, I'm just looking at the reflection on each of the edges, and I see absolutely no buckling, no uneven extrusions on any of this. So this looks really good. I'm happy to report that this firmware upgrade, although I don't think it was done perfectly in terms of the BLTouch orientation, I do think it fixes the bed leveling issue. At least it does for me. So if you would, why don't you leave a comment if you've applied this firmware update, or if you've got a new version of the Ender 5 Plus with the firmware update. Leave a comment below. Let me know if it fixed it for you. If you want this particular test print, I've got that in the description, as well as if you've been on the fence and been waiting on this fix to buy an Ender 5 Plus, I have an affiliate link in the description that if you use will help out the channel. I hope this was useful. I hope this helped some of you that have had problems flashing your Ender 5 Plus. If you're still having problems, let me know. I'll see what I can do to help. And again, thanks for watching Kersey Fabrications.